Good morning, everybody. How are you today? I was fortunate enough to get an interview with a doctor yesterday, and he told me some good things. We cannot put his face on camera, obviously. He wouldn't go for that. And but we do have all the audio, so that's great. Um, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to use the audio. I'm going to play the interview, and that's what we'll be discussing. Because the way these things are moving now, they're moving really fast. People are starting to notice. So on both sides. So we'll definitely have something interesting for you today. Stay tuned. We'll have the interview, and we'll probably have some Sarasota stuff that we have on YouTube. So I'll be giving you a way to get to see that. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I will talk to you later. Bye.
Podcast. That's where you start. They bring the guy on there, this ICU doctor that's on the head of this ivermectin thing, and he tells you his story. And they've been building for like the last month on this, and those are really eye-opening. Because there's no doubt there's no doubt that censorship, after that podcast, they were censored, they were threatened by Google, but there's a lot of people. So Megyn Kelly, she's the most mainstream person I've heard talk about ivermectin.
Wow.
But people are finding out about it because you know why they found out? Because plenty of good doctors in the other countries were using it successfully and have written papers, but they can't make it here big because the doctors and the big journals and stuff,
they won't let them.
Also driving the gravy train, saying we need more evidence.
Right. They won't. And the thing is, they won't even print it here. I've only heard it from you. I haven't heard it from anybody else. But you're the only doctor I've spoken with.
The beauty of it is that if you do a study on ivermectin showing that it failed with COVID, you'll get published in a heartbeat.
Wow, that's incredible.
If you design a study that's a sham study, that the primary principal authors are all have massive pharma ties, that paper will get published in a second, showing that ivermectin didn't work. But the 50 other studies that have been written across the globe, that I've been hoarding those PDFs because I never know when they're going to be unavailable. Okay.
Why don't you send them to me?
Yeah, I have a bunch of them. I'll organize them.
If you get them organized by next month, when I come in, that might be too late. But
so the guy to listen to on YouTube is this retired doctor, John Campbell.
Okay.
He's a British doctor. He just gives you facts.
Yeah.
He's really nice, and he just talks. And he's been talking about COVID neutrally for
16 months?
For months. He's got no agenda like that, but he just gives you facts.
Okay, I stopped believing.
Somewhere along the way in like February, he started talking about ivermectin. Then he brought on another woman who's another female doctor who does research that is a specialist in combining data from multiple different medical studies and putting it together. They're called meta-analysis. She's a specialist in this.
Meta-analysis?
Meta-analysis. That's putting together 30 or 40 studies that have weaker power, okay? That's what she does for a living. And she had no bias. She didn't know anything about ivermectin, but she put all this data together and she says, this thing is really amazing. This should be first-line treatment. And then we wonder why it's not first-line treatment.
It's the money. It's money.
So what happens is, it's money, but it's even more. It's political power, right? So like in India, COVID wasn't doing that badly. They were using ivermectin first line. They're the masters of generics. They were doing whatever they can. Okay, they make more generics than everyone else. So then all of a sudden, Yahoo publishes something saying that India is a shit show when it comes to COVID, when it's really not, okay? And then they put political pressure on India, probably by denying them financial aid, federal aid or financial aid, and they make it so that COVID is taken off of their list of essential drugs so that ivermectin is taken off of their list of essential medicines to treat COVID. They forced them to, probably by threatening them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the deep state thing.
Like the government, whatever, whoever it is, right?
Yeah. The banks.
And they've been bullying. So all these guys are guilty. So Fauci, as respected as a doctor he is,
he's a scumbag.
Diseases, he has created this game also of we need to fund big business with research, and so it's unacceptable for him to look at a drug that is what they call a reconstituted drug, a generic drug that costs nothing, and see that possibly as being curative, despite massive amounts of evidence supporting it.
Wow, that's incredible. That is
incredible.
Mind-blowing.
If you listen to this podcast, I know they're long, but he will elaborate on the story.
I intend to.
You start with June 1st with the Dark Horse podcast.
I intend to, yeah.
And you will be really interested, I promise.
All right, you save those PDFs for me, and I will definitely, if I have to make a trip to come down and get them, I will do that. I'm going to use some of what you just gave me.
You should look into it. It's really.
I intend to. Oh, I intend to do that as soon as I go home.
Because you would be absolutely fascinated with it.
I bet I will. Okay, I'm going to shut us off now.
It's eye-opening to me. It's not quite. It's these evolutionary biologists. They're trying to explain in some ways how other people follow this plan, even if they're not involved in a completely sinister plan. Okay, like their suggestion is that even without the sinister underlyings that you might suggest, that this is still possible with only a few people acting in a sinister manner. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you know, that, and I can tell you that my opinion has been that that is the case. Like from talking to other friends of mine that are doctors and trying to bring up this topic.
Yeah.
That I am squashed, or that, let's just say that they don't want to fight fairly, you know. You know, you can't tell me to conduct a double-blind study. Your boys need to just conduct a double-blind, placebo-controlled study,
right?
You know, and say that that's what matters,
and it won't work.
Well, no, they'll set it up to fail, Ernesto.
That's what I said. It won't work.
They will. I would too. If I was Pfizer, I would spend $200 million of my own money, which is nothing, and do a large trial study on ivermectin and guarantee its failure.
Right.
By probably taking the sickest patients and putting them in the study.
Right.
And I would use minuscule doses. Okay.
Exactly. That's exactly what they'll do
believe it or not, Ernesto, they talk about it in the podcast. This is exactly what they did for several medicines already that are not named ivermectin. For example, steroids works, and Pierre Corey, this guy you listened to the first podcast, he talks about it, but the first medicine that they were using, he's an ICU doctor. It's not like he's some doctor talking out of his element. Okay, he's an intensive care doctor, right? And he said, we all knew that high doses of corticosteroids worked. He went in front of Congress in 2020 at the beginning, asking them to emergency authorize use of corticosteroids for treating, okay? And they totally blew him off, okay? And because it wasn't a brand name drug, okay? They approved remdesivir, this drug that everybody knows is useless because it's a brand name drug that costs like $2,000, okay? They approved this. If you can ask anybody in earnest, whether you are any doctor that's working on them, they all say it's worthless, okay?
What is it called again?
Remdesivir.
Remdesivir. Okay, thanks.
Remdesivir has been given emergency authorization for treating COVID, okay? But it's useless. But they covered that one, and they didn't approve corticosteroids. So then, finally, somebody got smart, and they said, okay, we'll do a study on whether corticosteroids helps, okay? And so they designed this study to fail. Okay, instead of using high dose of corticosteroids, they used extremely small doses of corticosteroids, okay? And everybody that's in the community, the people that really treat COVID, they were like, we're expecting this drug to fail, and it's going to be a disaster. Because, we're expecting this trial to fail because they use low doses of corticosteroids, okay? And they're expecting it to fail. And then when it fails, then they'll be like, see, I told you we need to use remdesivir and not corticosteroids, you know, because corticosteroids are cheap and generic, right?
Right.
So, but by some miracle of God, the double-blind placebo-controlled study showed even a modest effect on we're using low doses of corticosteroids.
And it still showed an effect.
So it actually worked.
Wow. It's amazing, even at their lowest point.
Despite the best efforts of the writers
to set it up for failure.
To fail.
Right.
It worked. And it paved the way for them to really use higher doses of corticosteroids to save people's lives. Because if that had failed, they would have been like, no, corticosteroids don't work. Double-blind placebo-controlled studies showed that it failed, and then everybody would be like, dumbass, you didn't use enough, you know? So they did the same studies with the ivermectin, same kind of bullshit. They don't use a large enough sample, they take the sickest patients, they underdose it, there's all sorts of crap. You know, if you want to publish a paper in Nature, all you have to do is do a paper showing that ivermectin failed for treating COVID-19.
And everybody reads it.
Right away.
And everybody who reads it believes it.
Everyone will read it and say, see, I told you.
Right, exactly. And that happens constantly with the left. Okay, now I have one...
It happens with the right, too, though.
Well, it does, but not quite as much.
You're right. You're right about that. Anyway, I gotta go.
Yeah.
We can talk about this further. Read those passages.
Thank you for all that.